Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is me, Joseph Rothschild, aka MBT Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm here on this fine Sunday afternoon to share with you the non-copyright stream, but more importantly, the fifth Yu-Gi-Oh Quarantine series. Over to my right here is my left here is the cameraman. He doesn't want to be seen on stream because he's looking unshowered.
Wow.
We're just about to get into the games, into round one. I believe it is paired on challenge, but isn't final yet. Do want to do a quick deck breakdown with all of you before we get started, and I also want to do a couple of individual shout-outs. Today's event, I am fronting the entirety of, and the payout is going to be substantially larger than usual. That's because the event is substantially larger than usual. There are double the amount of players that there usually are in this one. There are 128 of them. Oh, wow, and Sir Jack Meckinson being able to subscribe on screen and starting the hype train already. The winner's going to get not only a box of Eternity Code once it eventually makes it to the United States of America, but also a custom 10-minute testing and a shot at $10,000 through the Pro Play Games Players Invitational. And thank you so much to Pro Play Games for extending this to us. YGO Pro Deck showing up big in the chat as well. Oh no, the opposite. RINPG333 showing up extremely large. RINPG333, the winner of the pre-event, a Histlander tournament that I hope we will get a breakdown for at some point over the next week. I unfortunately was only the runner-up. RINPG just decimated everyone. Anyway, I am very excited. We are going to have a 7-round tournament today to accommodate these 128 players. We are still cutting to top 8 because it's already going to go till about midnight, and I don't want people to have to stay up too far past their bedtime. Trying my hardest not to conflict with the LCS that's going on right now. But unless your name is exactly Ryan Yu, I think you'll be fine. All right, so let's jump into the individual decks that are being played today. Let's make sure I've got this correct. Here they are. We'll do a little bit of a breakdown before we hop into round one. As you can see, a lot of people not playing meta. Of course, we all know the best two decks are Eldritch and Adamancipator. You don't need me to say it, chat. You all know it for yourself already. Secret Slayers has absolutely warped the metagame to the point of no return, but we are edging up on June 1st, and there's a possibility that no one will ever have to purchase these cards in paper unless your name is Farfa, in which case, summon Savage Dragon in defense next time. We've got 12% of the pool on Eldritch. That's 15 individual pilots, 8 on Adamancipator, and this does not include the one Adamancipator Gem Knight FTK player. They were very specific about not being included there. 6% of the field is also on Generaider. A lot of individuals playing a lot of different types of Generaider builds. Someone is trying to make this deck stick, and it could be anyone, but my money's on Dunkoro. Salamangreat showing up big after a big showing the last Yu-Gi-Oh! Quarantine series. An unreal conversion rate. Started with only 2 copies out of the 64 players, and one of them made it into top 8. People have identified the deck as good, and that's why 5 people are on it. 4 Waters as well. The hand loop deck really punked out. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought it would be the 3rd best deck, or at least competitive versus the metagame, but it wasn't. Mech Knight as well with 6 copies. A bunch of different builds, but all aim to make use of Purple's incredibly powerful plussing tools in order to pop off, and Gearsu's addition to the deck has been fantastic. 4 individuals on Sky Striker, and that is really shocking to me. Sky Striker, personally, I did not think was an extremely powerful archetype, but as Ryan Yu is currently tearing through the luxury gaming series, the LCS, in another channel, I do feel as if it might still have legs. Zodiac, we've got a couple of pilots on. That 2 should be a 3, I believe. Or that 2 should be a 4, rather. A lot of people trying to make Zodiac work, some with Time Thieves, some pure. We've also got Trains, Dolce, Plunder Patrol, thankfully, after no showing in the last one, and Altergeist. I am excited to see every one of these decks. Of course, the big news is that 46% of the field is on something that is not represented in these. There are a bunch of sick decks among the field. Gem Knight FTK, which made top 8, regardless of the fact that only 2 people were playing it last tournament. DDD is in here. There are a bunch of really interesting brews that I hope we get to show on camera. But let me know what you would like to see for this first round. I'm gonna immediately, like as soon as I turn this off, I am going to let the individuals in the games know that they can start playing. I'll decide on a first round feature match, and we will be off to the races. So don't go anywhere. I will be back momentarily with the first round of the 5th Yu-Gi-Oh! Quarantine series. Hello, everybody. I am your host, Joseph Rothschild, aka MBT. Thank you so much for the level 3 hype train over the course of the last 10 minutes. I will respond in kind with a matchup that we haven't gotten to see in a while. Unfortunately, while he's entered the last couple of tournaments, he's immediately dropped to X4, which is just a terrible shame. But as you may have understood by the intro, we will be watching this game, the legendary Jeffrey Leonard. He has entered this tournament not playing Barrier Statue Stun, throwing caution to the winds in a format full of Eldritch, playing Mystic Mine. I am so excited to cast this, and his opponent is playing a deck that I think we have not yet gotten sick of. That is Generaider. I hope that there will be a lot of back and forth, but I doubt it. I will let them know that I am ready to go, and then we are very, very close to starting the first match of the 5th Yu-Gi-Oh! Quarantine series. All right. So as you can see, a legendary ocean up on the screen. For some reason, I can't divine. Now, not much depends on the die roll here. Of course, Generaider isn't going to set up a 10 negate combo or anything, and Jeff doesn't have very many good turn 1 plays either. Oops, just moved that around a little bit, I think. Woo! There we go. And it looks like set 2, Activate Dimension Shifter is going to be the play out of what I assume is Jeff Leonard. I mean, I can't imagine Generaider is excited to fire off that Dimension Shifter turn 1, and then no combo to follow it up. Though, the Cyberse build of the deck has been known to play that card. All right. In fact, it looks like the Dimension Shifter was activated from the Generaider player, and Jeff is off to the races, eating a Ash Blossom off of the Pot of Duality. To those of you saying you can't Ash Blossom under Dimension Shifter or Macrocosmos, terrible news. All right, we're going to fire off a Planet Pathfinder here, and if this resolves, it's going to be a huge headache. Of course, this does not need to be tributed from the field to the graveyard. It can go directly to the Banished Zone to fetch that Mystic Mine. And while Mystic Mine is fine with no monsters on the field, you're going to have to figure out a better scenario in which to activate it. Provided Master of Rights has something like a boss stage set, they can just activate it at end step. Ooh, but it looks like they do not. Wow, and another set card not committing to the board. I do really like this. I mean, no real reason to put monsters on field and turn on the Mystic Mine, which is Jeff's only way to win the game. All right, the Mystic Mine comes down, and he must have drawn something like a field barrier to follow it up. Ooh, it looks like Silent Wobby is going to be the play. Silent Wobby can be specialed from your hand to your opponent's side of the field, and if that happens, your opponent is able to draw a card and their hand size becomes 3. Cosmic Cyclone on the Mystic Mine is terrible, but I would imagine that Jeff has something set just for this. Let's see if we see a Dark Bribe or a Solemn Judgment in response. Yep, a Solemn Judgment it will be, displaying the patience, and met with a Solemn Judgment from Master of Rights. Oh, met with another Dark Bribe! A 6 chain deep just to resolve a Silent Wobby, unencumbered. Well, this is pretty bad news for Jeff, to be completely honest. The Silent Wabi's going to draw a card, and we know that this individual is on copies of Cosmic Cyclone, which out Mystic Mine through Field Barrier, so it's something you're going to have to be on the lookout for. PPGYGO, thanks so much for the host. I really appreciate it. And a second Silent Wabi! Just so you know, this is not once per turn. We can summon a couple of them, and suddenly it's very difficult to reduce the amount of monsters on the field. Ooh! So Masquerade, of course, can be summoned here, but doesn't necessarily matter. It's still one monster. At the very least, the hand size of the Generaider player won't be 3, which is something. Alright, gonna proceed to end phase here. And, Jeff, I mean, do your best. Pot of Duality coming down again, no chance of an Ash Blossom on this one, and we see a Planet Pathfinder, a Goddess Skuld's Oracle, which might just lock up the game. Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. For those of you unfamiliar, Goddess Skuld's Oracle is akin to Jace the Mind Sculptor. It allows you to Fate Seal your opponent's deck. You look at the top 3 cards, and you set them in any order you choose, like Spiral Gear Drone. It's used in order to then set the top card of your opponent's deck and destroy it with the other 2 Goddess spells and traps. But of course, Jeff Leonard is just using it in order to prevent his opponent from finding the out to his Mystic Mine. And truthfully, I think it will probably be good enough to do so. Alright, the Generaider player from this position has to draw, like, several Cosmics in a row in order to get out of this, and that seems unlikely. Yeah, looks like they are going to proceed to Game 2, and here we go! Jeff might be off to a pretty quick 1-0 start against a deck that is absolutely incapable of dealing with it. Chat asks, where can I get Jeff's list? Do you have, like, a bulk binder? Just grab 40 cards out of that, and you're pretty close. No, I think Jeff's list is pretty well-known information at this point. Not a whole lot has changed since its previous iteration. If you look up Jeff Leonard Mystic Mine list, I'm sure you can find it. For what it's worth, I don't actually dislike Mystic Mine as a deck. I think this deck, you know, has pretty clear weaknesses, an innovative win condition. It's not that miserable to play against unless you are not playing spell and trap removal in the main board, in which case, you know, it can feel unwinnable. But the fact that this deck exists isn't, I think, a good reason to ban Mystic Mine. I think the reason Mystic Mine should be banned is because it's playable in decks that aren't this. And one thing that sucks for Mystic Mine is playing sideboarded games. Like, obviously, game 1s are extremely easy. You know, you came to beat Adamancipator, so you probably didn't have your sights set on stuff like Cosmic Cyclone, which, unluckily for Jeff, his opponent is mainboarding. But after sideboarding, it becomes much, much harder. The things that your opponent brought in to beat Eldritch, the individual spell and trap banishing, those cards are going to be extremely good against you, despite the fact that your deck is far less robust than that much better strategy. Alright, and it looks like it's going to be a set 1 pass. Was this a force to go first onto Jeff's side? I really do like that. It's not like he can really accomplish too much. Alright, we're going to set 4 and pass it back. Let's see where we go from here. Alright, Generaider boss stage, a good start. I don't know if you waste Spell and Trap Negation on this. You know, Boss Stage is an extremely powerful card, of course, but I think you can be pretty secure in the knowledge that your opponent is going to have multiple ways to access this card if you allow them to. It summons cards to your opponent's side of the field, and it does so in a way that you can activate Mystic Mine in response. If you have something like a Metaverse, your opponent summons a Har, and then you fire the Metaverse before they're able to summon the tokens, you could potentially stick a Mystic Mine at a pretty critical point. Looks like Jeff is going to opt to Dark Bribe that. One unfortunate way in which Mystic Mine interacts with Generator boss stage specifically is that boss fight can reset boss stage from the graveyard. So it isn't even a win condition to destroy all of their copies of boss stage. You're going to have to weasel through 6 of them to get out of it. Lopter is a fantastic normal summon, not the best in the deck, but it is a Lone Fire Blossom for the entire archetype. It can get Mardell for a second copy of Generator boss stage. If they've already got the Generator boss stage, it can tribute tokens on its opponent's turn. There's just really no end to the combos this enables. All right, we're going to fire off Dovelgus, and oh, it's one of those hands, eh? Dovelgus is going to summon Mardell from the hand, and then Mardell is going to be able to activate, adding a Generator card to hand. I imagine this will either be boss stage or boss fight, and it looks like boss quest is the get. That means that the hand includes another Generator. Ugh, must have been pretty yucky. I would consider bribing this, and yeah, it looks like Jeff is going to go for it. Firing off the Dark Bribe to deny the boss quest now that you know the hand includes a pretty miserable card in the form of at least one more boss. Unfortunately, punished for it almost immediately with the World Legacy Monstrosity. This enables you to summon 2 level 9 monsters with a different type and attribute from the Mardell from deck. And of course, they can do just about anything from this position. You know, you could get a couple of, maybe like a Har, a Hala, and the necessary material to overlay for a rank 9, something like an Earth Slicer, would really wreck the back row. Looks like that's going to be negated as well. Wow, really just having every single Solemn Judgment in the deck and no way to stick the Mystic Mine. Well, if that set card is Boss Fight, it still could be quite good. We know at least one card in hand is a Generator, which is unfortunate. But fired Boss Fight early to get a Har, for example, would enable the negation before even the second effect of Quest resolves. Oracle's fine, but less good if your opponent is able to stick a boss stage. If they are, they're able to shuffle their deck pretty much every turn and nullify any gain you might get from it. Firing the Solemn Judgment on this, that's the one piece of interaction it's likely they have over the course of the turn. If that last card is Mystic Mine, they're going to look foolish. Alright, going to set one card and, what, pass back? Wow, and Jeff not sitting at a very high life total, although notably not dead to Lopter plus Mardell. One thing that... Ooh, Metaverse is such a good hit. One thing that Generator really struggles with in positions like this is putting damage onto the board, and giving Jeff extra turns to find things like Mystic Mine or activate it while they only have one monster on the field is killer. So this is bad, but not the end of the world. You know, you do have to play around the Mystic Mine. You weren't able to lock them out from that position, but, you know, you have boarded 15 cards. Your opponent has seen Dark Bribe, Solemn, Solemn. It is pretty likely that set card isn't going to out something like a Cosmic Cyclone. So we are going to fire that. It is going to banish the Mystic Mine, and we might get out of this yet. Just shy of lethal, I think. Oh no, we could use the Lopter to get a level 9, of course, and that would be lethal. Jeff, noting that that set card is not going to get him out of it, goes to game 3. And folks, I did not expect us to have a game on our hands, but here we are. Wow. The concept that the fact that Jeff could actually lose a game on camera, shocking. I would assume that there is less going to be boarded this game, right? Like, you're expecting the game's going to go into late turns regardless, so there's no real reason to be boarding into, like, turn 1 Haymakers or turn 2 Haymakers. You just want the negation and spell removal necessary to out your opponent's board, no matter how long it takes. Okay, so going to lead with a Pot of Extravagance. This still could be either player. Though likely that's on Jeff's side. That's about as good as openings get. Deep in the tank on this line of play. We've got time. Firing the Mystic Mine blind turn 1. That signals the Wabi 100%, and really nothing you can do from this position. The other frustrating thing about Wabi in particular is that, like, yes, a lot of the things that beat Jeff's deck are the same things that beat Eldritch, but a lot of the time those manifest in the form of Lightning Storm, in the form of Evenly Matched, and summoning a monster to your opponent's side of the field, even if it pluses them, is a real hoser to those. Oh, a Cosmic Cyclone. Is that set card negation? And yes, it is. Well, he's playing 6. We would expect you'd find one of them. A Terraforming afterwards, and we might actually be able to resolve a boss stage, though I don't know how good it is with Mystic Mine up. All right, so it looks like we're going to set 1 and pass turn. Unfortunately, we'll have to discard down at end step because the maximum hand size of a player with Silent Wabi goes down to 3. A Har into the graveyard is not that bad. It means it's on later for Hala. Wasn't really doing anything in the hand either. And a second extravagance out of Jeff. That explains the lack of set cards. Now, we haven't seen a win condition out of him yet, and he's down in cards, so decking isn't going to work. I am interested. One of the frustrating things about Generaider in particular in terms of mill strategies like Mystic Mine is they have an in-archetype way to repeatedly draw you cards. By using Boss Fight at the right times, they can draw the last couple of cards out of your deck and brick you to death. Or not brick you necessarily, mill you to death. But it looks like the Generaider player not even going to have to worry about that just because they're already up by a single card. Discarding down here, sending a Lopter to the graveyard. Wow, this hand is so monster heavy. Well, a couple of set cards is good for Jeff, but he's really looking for something like an Oracle, and whoa, left arm offering the whole hand. Pathfinder, Field Barrier, Pathfinder. Do like being willing to banish Field Barrier here, understanding that it's less likely his opponent has something like Twin Twister, and more likely that they're going to accidentally lose themselves the game by activating Field Barrier while their opponent has a Cosmic Cyclone set. We're going to fire off Goddess Skuld's Oracle. Milling your opponent to death under Mystic Mine as Generaider sure worked out for you well last time. Okay. Let's not bring my previous gameplay into this. There's a reason I'm casting and these players are playing. And going to the end phase again, this time discarding an Utgarda. Wow, they're just drawing every single boss out of the deck, unwilling to trigger this Generaider boss stage because it would put them under their opponent in terms of cards. Hardleg, this is a Mystic Mine deck, period. Alright, now being willing to set cards, I think the only thing you would want to be setting in this matchup is something like a Solemn Judgment, and it's possible you get yourself into a scenario where you want to be able to, like, fire a Cosmic Cyclone and have Judgment backup, knowing that your opponent's already used a Dark Bribe, so it's less likely they have pieces of negation that they need in order to prevent you from stopping them. Alright, looks like we're still going to be setting cards, not willing to go down any further because of Silent Wabi. Ah, man, just, it's so rough to be in this position. You know, you're trying to draw into your remaining copies of things like Cosmic Cyclone, but your opponent has the ability to alter the contents of your deck at will via Goddess Skuld's Oracle. So if you ever find it, it's going to be because there are 3 must answers on the top of your deck. You've got to figure out some way to break this lock before Jeff can find a win condition. Chad is correct. That is, if Jeff is playing a win condition at all. The last time Jeff brought Mystic Mine to a Quarantine series, knowing that there is a time limit on Edo Pro and the games can only go X amount of time maximum, he neglected to play a win condition. He was like, I'm just going to deck my opponent, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. He's made a couple of changes since then, after a pretty miserable showing, but I think that this is going to end a little differently. All right, let's fire off Goddess Skuld's Oracle again. And the most debilitating thing you can see off of Goddess Skuld's Oracle is no change. If your opponent says, yeah, those are fine in the order they're currently in, you just go, oh, I see, I've lost the game already, huh? And with 3 cards set, I can't imagine that they aren't some number of Metaverse, Solemn Judgment, Dark Bribe. Really just a long walk to the finish line at this point. But of course, he will have to find a win condition as his opponent is up on cards. This is the frustrating part of Mystic Mine in particular, is like, yeah, you can get to this position, as you can with Lantern Control, where the game isn't technically over, but it feels over, but you have to stay in the game because there is like a 1% chance that you make it out. Jeff is up on life. If it goes to time, then we are not playing with timed rounds. One of the benefits to playing on Edo Pro is every individual turn has a hard time limit. So there's really only so long a game can potentially go, and that amount of time is about 40 minutes. All right, firing off another Pot of Duality. Sick rip off the top. Ooh, being met with a World Legacy Awakens here. This is odd. I think trying to fiend some sort of negation out of Jeff. Does Jeff really mind if his opponent activates this card? I don't think so. All right, so here's a bunch of monsters. Ooh, those are 3 good ones. None of them win the game for Jeff, however, and unfortunately picking one will still keep him lower in terms of cards than his opponent. Okay, Metaverse it is. That's a fantastic way to be able to hedge against a Solemn Chain. If you get into a Solemn fight, you can just flip a Metaverse at resolution. And the Dovelgus still in deck here. Okay, so those 2 go to the graveyard, and really it looks like what that Awakens accomplished, or Monstrosity rather, is just getting cards out of the deck. You know, you want to get a minimum amount of cards out of the deck in order to make it more likely that you're going to draw into your Haymakers, but you don't want to go over how many cards are in Jeff's deck, as he is probably attempting to mill you out here. Oh, Hardleg has a pretty reasonable idea here. It is very possible to make your own monster and then Solemn your own summon. Going to battle phase here. Unfortunately, Mystic Mine is just as good as you would imagine. Going for an evenly matched at end of BP, and yeah, this is not as good as you would expect, but we will banish 1 card. And if one of those cards is a Solemn Judgment, you know, this is a way to fiend a piece of negation without having to go for a necessarily big chain. Like, in this matchup, you have to rethink things like evenly matched. You put it in your deck in order to win games against decks that barf their whole hand onto the board and have no follow-up, but it also functions as an MST in matchups like this one. And really heads up coming from Master of Rites. I mean, they spent a lot of time doing nothing with a handful of gas to attempt to resolve this line. Going for a Cosmic Cyclone here, and you gotta have a piece of negation, potentially 2 if that set card is a copy of Solemn Judgment. Looks like we are going to go for Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell. Oh my gosh, that's miserably bad. Wow, not only does Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell evenly out the Cosmic Cyclone, it also prevents activation of Cosmic Cyclone for the rest of the match. So there's still 1 Cosmic Cyclone in deck, provided they're on 3 copies, and if that's the case, one of your outs is just completely off. This is game 3, chat, yes. All right, looks like Prohibition, now that we don't have to fear Cosmic Cyclone, way easier to pick a name on this. I would be interested to know what Jeff is going for. Evenly matched the call. Wow. So, funny thing about Prohibition, it is reciprocal. So, calling something like a Solemn Judgment, probably not the best idea in the world. Going to Called by the Grave, the Silent Wabi, and are we going to see an attempt at another evenly matched? I don't think so, not in the main phase at least. Alright, going to fire off Goddess Skuld's Oracle here, and shuffle the top of the deck. I'm trying to fathom what you would have to get out of this scenario. Maybe Twin Twister specifically? It would have to be Twin Twister with a set copy of Judgment. So this is like fine, but Jeff still doesn't have a way to win. Oh, until we fire off the Left Arm Offering. Yeah, this might do it. A Metaverse and a Planet Pathfinder. I think we will likely see Final Countdown the ad. But we'll see. There it is. Final Countdown. And count along with me, chat. So 20 turns after this card is activated, counting the turn you activate this card as the first turn, you win the duel. So this is 1. We are on turn 17. 1. And thankfully there's a big number on screen as well. 2. Jeff drawing for turn, just fiending for extra copies of Solemn Judgment at this point, shuffling the top of his opponent's deck so they can't win any counter war no matter what happens. Blast of the Song on turn 19. This VOD is going up on YouTube. I'm not getting demonetized. 3. Master of Rights just drawing whatever Jeff bequeaths unto him via the Goddess Skuld's Oracle off the top of his deck. I don't think it's very likely that they're able to find the out. Looking at the top, I mean, making any decision at all makes me think that there is a card remaining in the deck that Jeff is particularly afraid of. Likely hadn't seen it at the activation of Prohibition, otherwise they would have called it. 5. Chad, you're not doing good at counting. No, it's not 10 yet. 6. Alright. I mean, really, just only Solemn Judgment is the last thing that Jeff needs. The best part of Final Countdown is, unlike outs like Cauldron of the Old Man, Wave Motion Cannon, they don't lose to the cards your opponent is already boarding, right? They don't lose to it doesn't lose to Cosmic Cyclone, doesn't lose to Twin Twisters. It goes to the graveyard and counts independently. 7. 8. Oracling again here. Notably, when we cast Jeff at the Pro Play Games Invitational in his go-round, or in his top 16 match, rather, he played against an individual who the top 3 cards of their deck were triple Twin Twister. 9. Alright, we're halfway there, chat. 10. If those set cards are Solemn Judgment, it's very possible that Master of Rights is able to put something onto the board. But we're in a position now where not only do you have to out the Mystic Mind that's on field, you have to assemble lethal really quickly. And Generaider has a real problem doing that, especially with so many bosses in the graveyard. You know, there's a Lopter, an Edgarda, a Har, a couple of Mardell. It's not looking fantastic. 13. Whatever it is, you got to find it immediately. 14, 5 more turns, and the game is over. If you're in Jeff's position, you probably don't even care about putting spell and trap removal on top of the deck anymore. As long as you can keep your opponent off of individual bosses, it's going to be very hard for them to win this game through any sort of damage. They're racing a clock that they just can't conceivably beat. 15. Oh, we're at 16. What are you discarding? Boss Quest. Yeah, don't want to go down in cards. And it's also very possible we don't have any targets. A full set back row, I can't help but imagine that is likely what, 3 solemn judgments? Goddess Skuld's Oracle firing once again. I mean, Jeff just doing his best to prevent his opponent from opening any door. When you're playing a deck like this, the most important thing you can do is ensure that your opponent isn't able to get back into the game at all. It can feel like you're winning, and it can be easy to go on positive tilt, but doing that even under a final countdown for 17 could potentially lose you the game. It looks like 18, and the Generator player is going to have exactly 1 crack at it before the time expires. The final Goddess Skuld's being activated right now, and no change out of Jeff. Says, draw your last pathetic card so I can end this. Demise of the land to the graveyard, and what do you have? Oh! Victory by the effect of Final Countdown, and as we expected, a lightning storm in the hand unfortunately turned off at all stages of this game by the Silent Wobby. Wow, wow, wow. Jeff Leonard 1-0 after the first round of the 5th Yu-Gi-Oh! Quarantine series. Folks, that is going to be it from round 1. Unsurprisingly, that was one of the last matches still remaining.